Hello everybody, welcome back to another turn of Operation Montagnards. This will be, I believe, turn 14 for the Japanese. Yep, that's January of 1943. Minor bits of housekeeping, things already adjusted on the board, nothing needs to change here. But the attack on Vichy, bit of a mix-up there. It requires an attack with a ground unit, not an attack against a ground territory. So that apparently was not a valid attack. So Vichy is still Vichy and not German. As a consequence, Jinx has requested that a TBD be relocated from his fleet in M8 to stop the British Commonwealth from moving through. And with that, we can jump straight into it. I have rolled the dice off screen on Dice Maiden. We got a hit of 7 on improved construction, and a miss of 4 on radar. Let's hop over to the buys. I'm declaring that I'm completing both light carriers and a heavy cruiser, building 5 militia, 1 militia upgrade, and 6 infantry. That should leave 4 remaining for lend-leasing a marine, which should clear the bank. Let's go straight into the combat movements. We have lots of small ones, nothing that's super edge of your seat on this one. First off, from Dutch New Guinea, we'll have 1 infantry and 1 artillery marching over into New Guinea. They will be accompanied by the tactical bomber from C-Zone P52. Carrying on from P52, 2 coastal submarines are going to move south into P62, and they're going to raid the Anzac convoy line in that sea zone. Okay, further west. Okay, from P... oh boy, I don't know the number. Must be 59 maybe? Yeah, looks like P59. We'll have a destroyer that is leaving the fleet from P59. It's going to be picking up a marine from Java before it goes. And it's going to be moving east 1 sea zone into P60, where it will be joined by TBD. So both of those units have 2 movement remaining. And then move north 1, 2 into P50, where both of those units will be going on escort duty. Excellent. Okay. From I-13, we have 2 light cruisers, which are moving into P59, and then P50, and then P41, and they're going to be going on escort in P41. So we'll get another escort marker there. And that is another combat declaration. Those beasts hanging out in China for right now. Got a lot of lines in this sea zone, but they are in P41 right now. That would be those lines there. Okay. From P50 itself, there is a raiding battle cruiser. Battle cruiser as raider, rather. And it will be convoy raiding as well in that same sea zone. But it will be joined by one of the submarines, the one that started in I-4. 1, 2, 3, into that sea zone, where it will be raiding as well. Okay. Combats. Alright, from Luzon and the Visayas, we have a seaplane and a fighter, both of which are mapping in P41 against the French submarines. From Nanking, we have 2 strategic bombers, which are carpet bombing Hainan. Ba, ba, ba. And I believe lastly, yeah, I do believe the last combat move declaration we have is I'm going to be mapping in T14 as well with the fighter from Honshu. Everything after that, nope, one more escort. The 2 TBDs, which were in port in Tokyo, are going to be escorting in P15. And I'm reasonably sure that has combat moves completed. Technically, I do also need to declare combat moves passing through P42, and that'll be 1 destroyer from P51 is moving 1, 2, and it will be going in port in P32 in Nanking. But because it passes through the Soviet submarines and the Soviets have a chance to declare war, that is necessarily going to have to be a combat move. I have spoken with Jinx regarding that declaration of war, and it is not going to be forthcoming. We'll have no declarations of war with the Soviets this round. But further movements through the sea zone, I'll have the second fleet, which is 3 heavy cruisers, a light carrier, and a fleet carrier, from P59, moving into P50, then P42, and then P43. 1, 2, 3. And all of those units have 3 movement. So those are also passing the Soviet subs, and I do believe that is it. So with that, I guess our combat declarations are complete. So let's go ahead and start rolling them out, I guess. Okay, we'll roll for the carpet bombing of Hainan first. We have 6 carpet bombing die at 2. That's 1 hit and 1 hit only. I'm happy with that. So that'll be the militia dead. And then those bombers will fly home. Okay, moving on, we'll do the P62 convoy rating next. We have a +1 on both of these submarines, and a +3 in the convoy's defense, for a net of +2 on the Anzac's favor. So that's 0 damage and also 0 damage, but neither of the submarines were sunk. Shouldn't have deleted all those die. Oh well. I'll just leave the ones that. And then next we'll do convoy rating in I-11. So first we'll have a roll for the battle cruiser, which is identical to the coastal submarines with a +1 versus a +3 for a net of +2 for the Anzac die, which is again 0 damage. And then we have a submarine, which will have a net of +1 for the Anzac, but also rolls an ASW die. Miss on the ASW, no damage, of course. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, let's do New Guinea. We have no first strikes. We do have a first strike. We have an artillery. That'll roll at a 2 or less. Ayo. And with that, New Guinea is captured without casualty. Okay. Let's account for mapping last. That's all we have left. So we've got a map in P41 with a fighter at 6 or less, 1 hit, and a tactical bomber, not tactical bomber, a seaplane at 3 or less. Oh well, can't hit them all. So that's 1 French submarine dead. And then let's roll for the American submarines in P15. We have just 1 fighter rolling at a 6 or less. Miss. Oh well. Okay. And with that, at the end of the combat move, we'll have aircraft landing. From P41, we have a seaplane landing in Formosa, and a fighter landing in Luzon and the Visayas. From P15, the fighter is just going to land back in Honshu. From New Guinea, the tactical bomber is going to land in Rabaul. And let's move on to the non-combat movement phase. We'll handle the rest of the aircraft first. From P59, we have a group of 3 aircraft that came from the aircraft carriers. That's 2 tactical bombers and a fighter. And they're flying 1 into P50, where they are joined by the fighter from Sarawak. And now all of those units have the same movement remaining. And they will fly 2, 3, 4, and land in Nanking. Oh boy. I'll clean that up in a bit. We have 2 aircraft markers there. We don't need that. I did forget to declare the end of the combat movement with the strap bombers. They're just going to be returning to Nanking as well. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Let's shuffle some land units around. From Borneo, we have a artillery and an infantry marching north into Sarawak. From Mindanao, we have a marine crossing the narrow crossing northward to Luzon and the Visayas. From West Timor, we have a marine crossing the narrow crossing to Java. From Java, we have what remains of the 97th, which will be 2 artillery and a mountain brigade, hopping on 2 of the naval transports in P59. And they have 1 naval transport capacity remaining, which will be filled by the airborne from Sumatra. Then what remains of the 6th Fleet, which includes just 2 battleships. Yeah. 2 battleships and the 2 loaded naval transports are going to be non-combat moving northward 1, 2 into P41. And from there, the 97th will be disembarking into Anam Tonkin. Yeah, they'll fit there. Yeah, I'll have to shrink that down too. Okay. From the escorting destroyer, this is a little bit of a tricky one. I can't find anywhere in the rules where I'm disallowed from disembarking a unit off of a destroyer that is escorting. It could only possibly apply to the Japanese. It makes sense that this rule was never addressed in the rulebook. It makes some sense that it wouldn't be allowed, but I see no restriction in the rulebook that says it shouldn't be allowed. So if it's not, the Marine will stay on the destroyer if it has to, but it would like to disembark into Cochin China. Further from I-13, we have another submarine just moving into P-50, and it's just going to hang out there. It did not participate in the convoy raiding. Okay, from P-59, we still have 2 naval transports that had not yet been accounted for this turn. They're going to be strategic naval moving from the dockyard in Java, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the port in Beiping, where they will be picking up an infantry, and continuing 5, where the infantry will be dropped off at the major port, or the major shipyard in Honshu, and the 2 naval transports will go in port in the major shipyard in Kyushu. Okay, from P-60, we have 1 destroyer and 1 heavy cruiser left. That destroyer is going to pick up the Marines from the Celebes, and they're going to be moving 1, 2 into P-44, and then north into P-43. And that Marine will be disembarking into Guam. And then these units will be joining the 2nd Fleet. In addition to those units from P-60, Guam will also be joined by the light carrier from P-52. And the entire 2nd Fleet is going to be going in port in Guam. Alright, the naval transport from P-52 is moving eastward 1 sea zone and going in port in Rabaul. They'll be joined there by the destroyer from New Zealand. 1, 2, 3. I do believe that should be all of our naval shuffling across the board. Alright, so let's take a look at Japan itself. From Honshu, we have 1 infantry marching south into Tokyo. Well, I guess east more than south, because it could be from over here. And then Kyushu has 2 infantry that are marching east into Honshu. Yeah. Alright, in China, from Rihi, we have 1 infantry being railed to Anam Tonkin, so he'll join the 97th. And we also have the heavy tank from Rihi railing into Nanking. We have a transport plane from Nanking that's going to fly 1, 2, 3, 4 and land in Tokyo. I'll clean it up. And then, last but not least, we'll be marching an infantry line from Nanking all the way to Annam Tonkin. So infantry from Nanking marches south to Hunan. Hunan marches to Kwangtung. Kwangtung marches to Annam Tonkin. And with that, we should have movements complete across the board. Alright, so let's place buys and collect income. Let's move you here on the edge. There, you fit like that. Okay, so let's place the buys. The 3 ships are all being placed in port in Tokyo. As well as we'll also be placing 2 infantry in Tokyo. I'll put an armor marker in Tokyo too. We'll be placing 2 infantry in Nanking. So on the 41st. We'll be placing a militia in Luzon and Visayas, a militia each in Java, Sumatra, and Borneo, and then everything that remains, which is 2 infantry and a militia upgrade militia, a MUM, will be going into Guam. The Lend-Lease, I didn't declare a path last turn, except in messages. So we have a route with the French subs submerged that passes through here and then cuts south past the English sub and then west past A44, and it can pass these escort ships as well, and they'll be landing in the shipyard in Aquitaine and being railed to Western Germany. And then the Marine will join the 86th. Alright. For collecting income, that alarm bell's going off there, but nothing can hit. I'm okay. So for collecting income, we should save nothing and collect 46, and then add 6 for the Chinese coast, and 6 for the islands. So that'll bring me up to 58. Alright, I'm reasonably confident with that. I can pass everything off to Tactile for the next British Commonwealth and Free French turn. As always, when I have time at least, I will be going through and doing a quick unit recap of all of my Japanese units on the board. If you don't need to stick around for that, you can go and take off. Best of luck to you. Let's go ahead and get straight into the unit recap. As always, we'll start south to north for the Japanese. Okay, so in these sea zones in the Indian Ocean, there's absolutely nothing. We have the furthest south, we have 2 raiding coastal submarines and P-62. Um, oh, we do have a marine in the South Island of New Zealand still. In New Guinea, we have an infantry and an artillery. In Rabaul, we have a tactical bomber, a destroyer in port, and a naval transport in port. Ba, ba, ba. On Java, we have 2 marines, a militia, an artillery. Sumatra has a militia, an infantry, and an artillery. Borneo has a militia. Sarawak has an infantry and an artillery. Alright, that's covered the far south. P-50 has 1 submarine just hanging out, 1 submarine and a battle cruiser as a raider, raiding the British Commonwealth lines, and a Japanese destroyer and TBD escorting the Japanese convoy lines. Luzon and Visayas has 1 militia, 1 marines, and 1 fighter. P-41 has 2 light cruisers on escort, 2 battleships, and 2 naval transports just hanging out in P-41. Oh no. I think the battleships are enough there. I don't think I need to worry about those subs actually attacking me. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that and call it good enough. Okay, that's all that's in P-41, is the escorting cruisers, the 2 battleships, the 2 naval transports. Formosa has a seaplane. Southeast Asia, we have a Marines in Cochin, China, a militia in Siam, 2 infantry, a mountain infantry, an airborne, and 2 artillery in Anam Tonkin. Kwangtung has 1 militia and 1 infantry. Yunnan has 1 infantry. Shangtung has 1 infantry. Hopei has 1 infantry. Beiping has 1 infantry and 1 militia. Rihe has 1 motor infantry, 1 artillery, and 1 militia. Korea has 1 militia. Nanking has 2 strategic bombers, and also 2 fighters, 2 tactical bombers, 2 militia, 3 infantry, 1 airborne, 1 marines, 1 medium tank, and 2 heavy tanks. And then also in port will be 1 destroyer in Nanking. That covers the mainland. Japan itself has nothing in Kyushu. Well, 2 naval transports in port in Kyushu. 3 infantry, 1 fighter, 1 airborne, 1 marines, and 1 heavy tank in Honshu. 4 infantry, 1 airborne, 1 militia, 2 light carriers in port, and 1 heavy cruiser in port, and 1 transport plane in Tokyo. I do believe I also did not announce the 2 escorting TBDs in P-15, but they are also there. More islands. There's the standard retinue of militia islands, which includes the Kuril Islands, Marshall Islands, Bonin, Volcano Islands, Caroline Islands, also Palau. And Guam has 3 infantry, 1 militia, 1 marines, 4 heavy cruisers in port, 1 destroyer, 2 light carriers, and 1 fleet carrier. I do believe that has everything covered. So alright, the file should be ready to pass off, and best of luck on your next rolls.